Greetings, Starfighters. Welcome to the Season 7 wrap-up episode. Before we get into the whole ranking the movies from worst to best thing and then announcing the next season's set, as is often the case, big thank you to this season's wrap-up voice, Darren Jackson, aka Rap Critic. Been watching his show for quite a while now. I think the first one of his was the top 9 worst rap songs of 2009. Yeah, pretty sure that was the first. And in all honesty, I kind of cribbed a joke from it back in season 3 for the vampire thing. The bit where, say the name of the movie that gets ranked worst, and it's just me pinching the bridge of my nose, and then the announcement for the next movie starts, but then it cuts back to me going, no, I just needed a minute. Yeah, sorry about that, Darren. Anyway, link to his show is in the show notes. I suggest checking it out. He is brilliant and funny, and I'm a little jealous that he's that smart when he's a good 15 plus years, almost 20 years younger than me. This season was rough, folks. I mean, I'm glad it ended on an up note, but wow. Just, and knowing in advance that a couple of these movies were going to be bad, that I had the chance to steel myself for how bad they were going to be because I'd seen the Diamanda Hagen and Filmbring crossovers for them. I was not ready. This was just, wow, this was rough. So, don't worry about the jump cut. You didn't miss anything important. So, let's just go ahead and get through this because I want to put this season behind me as much as humanly possible. I mean, yeah, there was one pretty good movie in there, but still, woof. I think percentage-wise, this may just be the worst season we've had so far.
Number 10, The Little Unicorn.
I don't feel great putting a movie with David Warner at the bottom of it, considering I'm filming this less than a few weeks after he died. But it's not really his fault. It's just they didn't pay, as Diamanda Hagen joked in her review, they didn't pay him enough to give a shit. But with The Little Unicorn, just so many things wrong with this. The misleading title, if whole chunks of the plot seeming like they're just missing, or that's assuming they were even filmed. Who knows? This is a Paul Matthews movie. None of the actors were bringing their A game. There's a protagonist switch partway through that then switches back. And okay, here's the thing: that it was a protagonist switch in itself, that's not that big of a deal, actually. But this movie, it's really abrupt and doesn't seem to serve a purpose. I think the only reason it happened was because there was a period of time where they weren't going to have both of the main child actors. That's just a guess. I don't know, and I don't care. I am not going to do deep dive researches into the fucking Little Unicorn. I think I mentioned the 3 pairs of villains, not the 6 villains, the 3 pairs of villains, all of whom get in each other's way more than anything else. The scenes that are clearly meant to evoke E.T. it is so bad. It is so bad. Now, just to clarify on the thing I said before about doing a protagonist switch isn't always a bad thing. Probably one of the best examples of that was the HBO series Oz, the prison drama. And it just occurred to me how weird it is that I used to watch that show with my grandmother. Anyway, the pilot kind of sets up the John Seda character as the guy we're going to be following through the series. We're going to be going through this. It's an ensemble piece, but he's going to be like the main guy that we're following through. And it's set up like that during, well, I say the whole pilot, most of the pilot, right up until the very last scene where he gets burned to death while strapped to a bed in solitary confinement. So, yeah. It's a good series, I swear. but yeah, a protagonist switch in and of itself is not a bad thing, but the little unicorn managed to do it in. I feel like I'm tempting fate and saying it's the worst way possible, so I'm just going to say it's the worst way I've ever seen it.
Number 9. Dazzle.
I was really tempted to just put this movie at the bottom, beneath even the little unicorn, because of the transphobic joke in it that I went off on in the episode proper. But there are a couple of reasons why I've decided not to do that. One, when you take it out, the rest of the movie, while obviously still bad, it's second from the bottom. It's not like offensively bad, it's just kind of boring with a villain who presents little to no threat until like his very last sequence in the movie. A lot of jokes that are just really out of place. A storyline that's fine enough for a movie that's geared towards children, but still should have had more effort put into it. The inconsistent acting, some of the actors, to their credit, clearly were trying, but others were just phoning it in. Also, the bit, again, as horrible as it was, I don't want to downplay that, was really short. I think all totaled, the offensive characters' 2 appearances, plus the, to put it gently, outdated word used to describe her in the credits, I think that it makes up maybe 2 minutes out of, well, here I can just go look at it. 2 minutes out of an 85-minute movie. I think the end credits were longer. So yeah, I'm glad I decided to, be more reasonable about that, and look at Dazzle as the whole, not just that one part that pissed me off, probably more than anything, even in the movie that's below it. But I mean, I have done that kind of thing during this series before, where it's like, where 2 movies are on the ranking, even when it's like, if it's near the bottom, if it's near the top, it's in the middle, there'll be like one little thing that just puts the other one over the top. And on the whole, Little Unicorn is just a worse movie on every imaginable level, except for the lack of transphobic humor. Yeah, I'm sorry. I am still recording this during a heat wave, and I don't script the season wrap up like at all. I mean, I know you're seeing my eyes dart off to the side there. That's just to look at the list, which I have in spreadsheet form because.
Number 8. Dragon World. The legend continues.
Oh, Ted Nicolau. I know you can do better, man. I know you can do better. But this was not it. This movie was so boring. It was so boring that there was a moment there I was actually going to put this under even Dazzle, where this would have been number 9 instead of number 8. It's just in terms of sheer dullness, in terms of how little happens. This is like if Jerry had a dragon in it and yet was still boring enough to be what Alison Pregler calls the worst movie she's ever seen. Or actually, I think she's found worse since then. But for a long time, the movie she hated most was Jerry. That's Jerry with a G, in case you don't know what I'm talking about. And if you're interested in watching it, I would suggest doing so from some place where if you if you fall asleep, it's not going to cause any injuries. But I mean, seriously, just I mentioned this in the episode where I talked about it, but again, just in case you forgot, it's possible you also forgot, but also if you're watching this without having watched that episode on Dragon World: The Legend Continues, I was watching the movie at 1.5 speed. Not the whole way through, but I was watching it at 1.5 speed, and there were times where I forgot forgot. It went on so long with so little happening that I managed to forget that I had it at 1.5 speed until somebody started talking. How, there may be dragon movies out there that are more bad in terms of like editing, story, acting, visual effects, unintentionally harmful messages, whatever, or problematic directors or stars. But I don't know if any of them could ever possibly be as boring as Dragon World: The Legend Continues. I don't know why I keep looking at the list like that.
Number 7. Merlin, The Return.
Mr. Matthews, Polly, my good bitch, my brother in Christ, you had Rick Mayall playing Merlin, and you couldn't do anything with that? Nothing. I would not have expected greatness from this. This because this was you directing it. But you could have gotten something. You had Rick Mayall in your movie, and you could have gotten more out of him if you just pointed the camera and said go. But no, you gave us this. I mean, wow. I mean, we've got another Merlin coming up, a couple of other Merlins actually, but one of them is played by an actor that I objectively dislike. Well, I shouldn't say objectively dislike. Well, no, I do objectively dislike him because of his politics. He was a better Merlin. You managed to get a better Merlin performance out of him, I should say, than you got out of Rick Mayall. Were you even trying? I mean, I guess not. I mean, I'm pretty sure most of these movies of yours are a fucking tax write-off anyway. Also, Craig Schaefer is Mordred. No, just no. I like what Diamond Hagen says about him. Craig Schaefer is the guy you go to when David Boreanaz asks for too much money.
Number 6. The Magic Door.
I'm actually having trouble remembering a lot of the stuff that happened in this movie. I remember I gave it points for having the stepmother actually be a sympathetic character. I remember that Anthony Stewart Head was in it. Probably not the worst thing he's ever done. Well, I should say, not the worst performance he's ever done. Probably one of the worst movies, probably not one of the worst performances, because, sometimes those things are actually separate. You can have a good performance in a bad movie and vice versa. Also, the logic of why the last troll didn't turn into stone was flimsy even by this movie's standards. And no, one of the characters hanging a lantern on it didn't help. But, honestly, I think at the end of the day, this movie's biggest sin might be just how forgettable it is.
Number 5. The Last Leprechaun.
Literally, the only reason this movie makes it into the top half can be summed up in one name: Veronica Hamill. If you want to find out where the scenery in that movie went, check between her teeth. Her just completely hamming it up as the villain is this movie's sole saving grace. Nothing else about this movie is really worth it. I mean, nothing about it is particularly offensive, and at least there aren't gigantic chunks of the plot missing, and it's not boring. It's not good, but it's not boring. But Veronica Hamill just steals every scene she is in. A children's fantasy movie villain performance like hers deserved a much better movie to be in. And, this is the other movie on the set with David Warner in it. He was better in this than he was in The Last Leprechaun, so I guess, hey, there's another plus. But although I think I saw The Little Unicorn after this one. So that's only something I can say with the benefit of hindsight. But yeah, honestly, if you like hammy villains, you might want to actually give The Last Leprechaun a shot.
Number 4. The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
I live in a world where there's a movie where Robert Davi played Merlin, the elder Agent Johnson from Die Hard. He was a Bond villain in one of the ones I haven't seen, so don't ask me to say which one it was, because I don't know. Robert Davi as Merlin. Robert Davi as Merlin. Yeah, no matter how many times I say it, it still sounds weird, but what's even weirder is that, all things considered, the movie is not bad, at least by Paul Matthews standards. There's some interesting ideas. They don't really do enough with them. Robert Davi gave a better performance than I expected, so that's a plus. Honestly, I'm struggling to remember why I rated this above The Last Leprechaun now, but that's too late. I already sent the script to Rap Critic, so.
Number 3. The Fairy King of our air. Is there a letter missing? The Fairy King of this place.
Okay, I know exactly why this one placed as high up on the list as it did. It's because, at least in terms of filmmaking, it is the best I saw from Paul Matthews this entire set. I could actually tell what was going on a lot of the time. The children were tolerable, and again, I always try to be more fair on child actors than I am on adult actors. I imagine that could probably go on a Shameless Cashgrab bingo card, but these kids were probably, I don't know if I want to say they're the best ones of the set, but they weren't bad, so that certainly was a plus. That was definitely in the movie's favor. CG was marginally better than it was in any of the previous movies. I mean, very marginally. We're talking like that. I'm crushing your head. I'm crushing your head. Anyway. Yeah, it's also, this one has a Riff Tracks version that I think might actually still be available to watch on YouTube. Totally check that out. Worth it. Oh, okay, right. Malcolm McDowell. Malcolm McDowell was okay. I mean, again, I've also seen worse from him, and I've seen worse from him in better movies too. So, I mean, Malcolm McDowell is one of those actors where it's like, even if the movie sucks, it is kind of worth it just for him. It's not always true, but I would say it definitely helps the Fairy King of R.
Number 2. The Excalibur Kid.
Not a great movie, but of the movies on this set that feature Merlin, it's probably the best. It has some interesting ideas that it doesn't do enough with. It's not boring at all. That's certainly a plus. Boy, I know I've been talking about boredom a lot this season, but you guys, you have no idea what it was like. I mean, well, unless you've seen it, you have no idea what it was like sitting through Dragon World, The Legend Continues. I don't know why I keep looking at the list like that. I'm sorry. One thing I did like about Excalibur Kid was it did feature kind of an interesting way for Merlin to defeat Morgan. I don't think it's necessarily unique, but it was interesting. One thing I really wish this movie had done more of, but I guess they couldn't because Arthur was actually more of a secondary character in this. But the idea that Arthur knew, at least vaguely, everything that was going to happen after he became king, but he decides to do it anyway, I feel like you could get a really good story out of that. So, yeah, I suppose now that I'm saying it all out loud more, I guess I'm saying that I like Excalibur Kid more for what it could have been than what it actually was. But considering this season, that is still good enough to put it into the top spot. The second from top spot. God damn it. Yeah, I've been recording for too long. I'm not editing.
Number 1. The Secret Kingdom.
Maybe my expectations were set way too low for this season, but I honestly enjoyed this movie. I mean, it certainly has its weaknesses. They definitely should have at least tried to find a better actor for the older brother, because, yeah, and honestly, maybe the older sister too. Now that I think about it, but I mean, you take care of that. Tweak a few plot aspects here and there. Maybe make it clearer what the deal with the lightning rod salesman is. I think you got a movie that could easily compete with some of the other, like family movie classics out there. I know that I've name dropped like Neverending Story and E.T. several times this season, but and it wouldn't be as good as any of those. Don't come at me, fans of those movies. But I'm definitely saying that Secret Kingdom could have been in the ballpark with those, shall we say, with just a few minor fixes, really. Unlike some of the other movies on this set, which were kind of fucked from the word go, mainly because they were, at least as far as I can tell, done as tax write-offs. But, I mean, I like the sets that they used. They had a decent villain. I mean, maybe he could have been a little better, but I thought he was okay, at least. Better than some of the other villains in this set, that's for sure. He had a good voice, and that's not surprising. As it turns out, I found this out after I recorded the audio for the episode for the Secret Kingdom. He's mainly a voice actor, so that actually explains a lot. I liked how they solved the crisis at the end of it, and the body horror, pretty effective body horror, especially for something that's geared towards children. I mean, I might have been overstating things when I mentioned David Cronenberg both in the episode and the show notes for Secret Kingdom, but it was really effective for the kind of budget this movie must have had, and for when it was made, and also for its target audience. Yeah, and the overt plot. I mean, the overtly political message of the plot about you know about like unethical medical experimentation, and you know and like religious dogma and all that, and just I mean, again, these are all things that could have been done better, but I don't think they were necessarily done badly in this movie. And I get that it has fairly low ratings on IMDb and Letterboxd, but at least in my opinion, I don't think it's entirely fair. I think this is a pretty good movie. It's, again, not a great movie, but you probably should go into it with your expectations tempered. But go into it. I think it is easily, no, not even easily. It is the only movie on this set that I will recommend, and like not even with a caveat, like only watch this if you like this actor, or only watch this if you like this subgenre. I'm actually recommending The Secret Kingdom. And this is also interesting. I think out of 7 seasons, this is only the second time where the best movie on the set was also the last movie on the set. I actually think that would be better idea for... I think that's something that Mill Creek should try to do in general, because it's probably always a plus to end on a high note. So, that's all out of the way. Once Upon a Fantasy Film Collection. 10 Enchanted Tales. DVD plus digital. Could have stood to have a little bit more fantasy in it, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think it would be much more accurate to call most, if not all of these movies, fairy tales as opposed to fantasy. And I know that I'm really splitting hairs there, but yeah, if you're like on a website, or if you're like you're at a store and you see something like this in the bargain bin or whatever, I'd say just give it a pass. Like 90% of the content on these films is just crap, and that's including like the worst scenes. I'm counting the worst scenes in the Secret Kingdom and the best scenes from some of the other movies lower on the list. Just 90% shit here. And honestly, now that I think about it, that might be lowballing it. So, yeah, I'm just glad I don't got to deal with Paul Matthews again anytime soon. Hopefully, ever. So, what is next for the show? Well, let me just go ahead and say this right up front. We're not getting any new Shameless Cash Grabs until November, because I want to actually do a little bit more prep work on this one than I usually do, because I want to be able to release the episodes weekly until Christmas. Why is that? You're about to find out. Oh, but before I do that, yeah, I'm going to just keep teasing you here. The title cards for next season. Yes, cards. Because the backups that Trent Troop of Isle of Rangoon made were just too good not to use. I'm only going to be using one of them in this video, but I will each episode in season 8, because there's only going to be 4 of them this time, will have a separate title card, which is a first for this show. But yeah, enough about that. You know them, you love them. Actually, you probably don't love them, but you love to make fun of them. They're cloyingly sweet and yet somehow also existentially terrifying if you think about them for more than a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, for season 8 of Shameless Cash Grab, we are looking at Hallmark Channel Christmas movies. For real, yo.